Everyone, and welcome to tonight's presentation offered by Your Space Hamilton. Today we've got a conversation about setting limits with love, L.O.V.E, with Margarita Rabinovich and Danielle Clement from Child and Adolescent Services, Public Health Department, City of Hamilton. And it's great to have them with us tonight to share information with families and those who are caring for young people. If during this session or while you're watching the recording, if you start to feel a little more stressed or that you need some assistance immediately, we do have contact information in the lower right corner. And you can certainly reach out to Kids Help Phone or to COAST 905-972-8338 or visit McMaster Children's ER if you're younger than 18 and St. Joe's ER if you are an adult. And right now we're going to go ahead and hand things over to Margarita and Danielle. And we're so excited to have them here and looking forward to tonight's conversation.
Thank you, Louise. This is Margarita, and I'm on camera. And Danielle Clement and myself, we created this brief introduction to setting limits with love. I will be on camera, and Danielle will be on the back scenes. And I thank you, Louise, for introducing us. So our intention is to offer you some ideas to remain proactive rather than reactive when your child presents challenging behaviors. It's the approach that we would like to share with you is an approach based on relationship. We believe that the change happens when caregivers and parents and children can develop, and youth can develop a trusting and safe and nurturing relationship. So I will move to the second slide. If you're patient with me, I'm learning as I go. Setting limits with love. I will develop more the idea of L.O.V.E later on during the presentation. Tonight, we're going to talk about how to navigate tough situations with your child or youth, always keeping the relationship as the most important ingredient to cope or to relate to your child when it's presenting challenging behaviors. So we felt that this was a wonderful quote to share with you. If you take a moment to read the quote, I will read it out loud. Treat people as if they were what they ought to be, and you help them to become what they are capable of being. We felt that this was a really, really important quote or idea to share with you. When children make a mistake or break a rule, it helps to have a caregiver who doesn't forget in that moment to see the child as a good person who just made a mistake. The parent can take the opportunity to be loving and nurturing to a child who is not in that moment fulfilling all their expectations on how they're supposed to behave or what they were supposed to do. This open space for talking about who the child wants to be as a person. So I think that not forgetting who you want your child to become and how you want to role model your love and your intentions to keep a safe environment with your child is really important, especially when the child is going through some challenging times or presenting some tough behaviors to deal with. Because when someone is yelling at you or punishing us for something we did wrong, we are not thinking about how we can do better in the future. In that moment, sometimes we feel paralyzed or we feel terrified or angry. And it is really difficult to focus on who is the person you want to become when someone is angry at you, is yelling at you, or when you feel scared of the person yelling at us, or ashamed of ourselves, or all the three things at the same time. In these situations, when we forget who we want to be as parent and who we want our child to become, we are breaking the relationship rather than building on the relationship. Um, so it's in those kind of situations, the idea of the best parent I can be in that moment is presented. Is those are opportunities when things are difficult, when there is a conflict, when the child is not responding the way you expect the child to respond. Those are the crucial moments, and those are opportunities for you to pause and to think about what kind of parent I want to be for my child through difficult times. And it is an incredible experience to really pause and think about what are your values and what really matters to you in terms of a relationship with your child. So there are some insights that we will invite you to remember. And even if you think about those moments when you were a child, um, when when you are having an emotional breakdown, when you are caught in a lie, when there is trouble at school, you were sent to the office, or you were suspended, and I don't know if there are any other ideas that comes to mind in this moment for you. I will give you a few seconds to think about different kind of um, emotional breakdowns or situations that created some trouble at school. I can imagine that many situations may come to mind, and even if you can reflect a little bit in your own childhood. And these are powerful opportunities to strengthen the relationship with your child. Um, we are not um, intending to say that they are easy or they're not difficult, but at the same time, they are great opportunities to strengthen the relationship with your child. um, at the end of the day, as we grow up and become adults or parents, we remember the people who were there for us in a non-judgmental way when we were struggling. When what we mean when we say that if you're having an emotional breakdown or you are being aggressive, what does it mean that in that moment you're being vulnerable? Um, if you think about even situations as an adult, you can see that in the moments of having emotional turmoil or conflicts at work or with friends, and you are intensely sad or you are very angry. In those moments, we feel vulnerable. We feel that we are being seen and we are exposing part of ourselves that most of the time are not fully expressed with such intensity. So if you can keep in mind and can you remind yourself that when your child is angry or having a temper tantrum or is having a fight with a friend or with siblings or biting the dog, those kind of behavior, it's pretty hard to see past the behavior. It's really, really hard to see past the anger or the aggression of your own frustration and irritation in the moment. Um, but if we make that effort, anger is just another emotion that is being shown. It's very uncomfortable for the person experiencing anger, who's feeling the anger. Is very difficult and challenging to witness someone expressing anger or when the anger is directed to you. um, Children have different ways to express their pain. And so do we as adults. It's really hard to bring ourselves to a vulnerable place and to have someone witnessing that those emotions in us. Whether you are crying or raging, you are vulnerable in that moment. People remember, people will remember, or we do remember those people who, in those moments that we were feeling vulnerable, they were there for us with no judgment and offered us comfort and acceptance. So thank you for being there, by the way. We really appreciate you attending this brief workshop with us. So there is a little bit of an expression that we use with the parents that we see here at Channel Lesson Services, and is connect before you correct the behavior. So I'm going to walk you through that briefly, the best way I can. So the child internal experience, when we say child's internal experience, we're talking about their feelings, their beliefs, their intentions, their motivations, the sensations in the body, the perceptions about who they are, who other people are, how they experience the world. So internal experience are things that basically we feel, or the way that we see life through our own eyes and through our own heart. And sometimes, you know, we say that it's really hard to see through the behaviors, or to see the child past the behavior. So it's very important to keep in mind to be able to somehow to have access to how the child is feeling internally. And when we use the expression connect with your child before correcting or intending to change some of the behaviors, we're talking about offering support, supporting the child's feelings, and engaging in a relationship that is building trust. So before I mentioned about how vulnerable we feel when we are experiencing intense emotions. So it is important to have an adult that I can trust, a child can trust, or the youth can trust, that in those moments they are going to be fully present with no judgment. And the main intention of the adult in those situations is to create an environment of safety and no judgment. So the element of connecting with your child is very important. Most of the child, in the child's mind, the intention is to solve a problem. And it's really interesting to observe and to learn how the child's mind works sometimes. Many of the behaviors in a child that create some conflict or tension are, the intention is to solve a problem. So for example, I experience, or I have situations in my office where a child is caught on a lie. You know, the child had issues at school, was sent to the office, got in trouble, and comes home and keeps that information to themselves. But at the same time, the parent got a call or a note from the teacher. So it feels like, you know, you're caught your child on a lie. But in the child mind, sometimes what happens, and we see this a lot, especially when parents themselves are going through rough situations, whether it is financial stress or health, you know, stressors related to health, or parents are going through separation and divorce. So the kids sometimes intention is to not to burden, not to bother their parents with something that happened at school that they imagine will cause more stress in their parents' life. So sometimes what we see as a lie in the child's intention is to protect their parent from experiencing more stress than what they already perceive their parents have. So those are things like that. And I hope this example help you to gain more understanding about what we mean in terms of some of the behaviors are the ways that the child is trying to problem solve. So I have some notes with me, so sometimes I will be looking down and making sure that I'm giving you all the information that we want to give you in this short time. When we provide a warm and nurturing environment and show curiosity, this is another important word to remember, is curiosity, to be curious about what the child might be experiencing. So it usually is, it open up conversation and being curious about what is inside the child's mind. Then we will be in a better position to guide the child through the structures and the rules or consequences if there is a need of any consequences to their behavior. And in reality, even if you think as an adult, when you feel understood, when you feel heard, when you feel that someone is truly listening with curiosity and trying to understand what is your internal experience, then we are more open to understanding and to even to follow through some of the structures and rules that, in this case, parents want to teach to their kids. And in that way, a child is not different from us, from adults. So one way to show curiosity or to exercise curiosity in the relationship with your child is simple questions like, what was that about? Yeah. Um, and the tone and your body language and the way that you show curiosity is very important. You know, it's not a what about, what was that about, or with sarcasm or cynicism. Is truly trying, these are opportunities for you basically to get to know your child, to be able to really connect with what is inside their minds, to understand how their mind works. So you know, questions like, you know, I've heard this from your teacher and I wonder what was going on in that moment for you. Or I'm really curious and interested in understanding how did you come to the conclusion that doing this or doing that was the best option for you in that moment. So we are in that, with this type of questions and you know, showing interest in what they were thinking or feeling in those moments, or what were they trying to problem solve, or what kind of choices they considered in those moments. We are opening space for the child to feel connected, to feel that you do have an interest in understand their own perception, their own beliefs, what were their intentions and motivations. So the any wall that the child might have, if the child is expecting you to be upset or angry, or hurt by their behavior, those will kind of relax and move down a little bit, and open opportunities to start the conversation of what are the behaviors that we need to correct if necessary. So then is when you can talk about rules and boundaries and expectations, and also the most important thing, to use these difficult moments for the child as opportunities for learning. So that is, we have a question, and that's very exciting. Thank you. And is, when do you know you've finished connecting and can move to the next part? That is a great question. Thank you so much. I think it's trial and error, and it's learning. I think as parents and as adults, we don't know everything. and it's okay to be patient with yourself and to trust the process. We talk a lot here at the clinic when we see parents and we see children, is to trust the process, to trust that the more you get to know your child, the more you understand how they feel in different situations, how they experience life and the world and other people and schools and teachers and friends. Um, because at the end of the day, children spend most of the time outside of the house, especially when they are at school. So there is a lot of experiences that they have through the day when you're not there with them, and they are building and developing the sense of independency and autonomy, and at the same time can be very stressful. So how you know when to move from connect to correct? I think if you pay attention to the body language of your child, you know your child. You are the best person who knows your child. And you know when your child is moving from being angry, upset, or scared, or just waiting for you to be upset with them if they did something wrong at school or with friends or even at home. You know when something starts to shift in the way that they present themselves, the tone of voice that they are using. Um, so it's very important that, and we will touch base on that, how important is to observe um, how they start to respond to you, the body language, how what is a response that you see in them when you say something to them. So sometimes it can take, part of the connecting part can be Monday and the correcting part can be Tuesday. Yes. So you both have time to reflect on what happened. You can also, as a parent, have a little bit of time out or time in with yourself, and there is no rush in this. Yeah. Things don't need to be resolved in the moment on the spot. So if both of you need a little bit of time out and you need to say to your child, thank you for sharing this with me. I didn't imagine that this is what you were feeling, or that in the moment you didn't have too many choices to or time to decide what to do, and you did the best you could in that moment. Even I, I need to, I need to think about this. I need to give it a little bit of a thought, and then maybe on another time, tonight or after a few hours or the next day, we can come back and talk about what we are both learning from this experience. I think it's very important for children to see that any experiences that they have, especially those challenging experiences, are learning opportunity not only for your child, but it's also for you. So appreciating and showing your appreciation to your child that they share something that it was very intimate, very, very private, like, yeah, their thoughts and their feelings. It's important to say thank you. Thank you for sharing this with me. I know this is difficult and it's challenging, and then you don't need to decide in that moment to talk about rules and boundaries and expectations. You can take your time. So I don't know if I'm answering your question because it depends on the situation. Yeah. But even if it's in a spark of a moment, you are at the grocery store and something is going on in that moment, sometimes we as parents need to problem solve in the moment. We don't have the time the time between the connecting and the correcting. But if there is something I can say, if you can use 90% of the time connecting and 10% of the time correcting, if you only have 5 or 10 minutes, I encourage you to try that and see what happens, because this is a learning experience for you as well. Sometimes we have parents saying, oh, if I'm spend too much time on the connecting, it feels like I'm validating the misbehaviors. And yes, we do understand that. And one expression that we've learned to use is that we parent the child with two hands. Yes. with one hand is the hands of connecting, and the other hand is the hand of correcting and teaching, good behaviors to the child. And I will touch base on that in a few minutes. There is another question. It says, are you talking about setting limits in a situation compared to rules at home than dealing with them when they don't get followed? Yes, we are talking about setting limits in a situation. And if you are patient with me, I will even give an example or an experience that I had when I was a student at university and working with a client a long time ago. In terms of how important is to set limits, how much children need limits and structures and rules. It is a way to give love and care, to discipline your child, and to have clear ideas about what are the limits and boundaries you want to teach your child. So that is very, very clear in terms of parenting. And yes, we have a brief time, and I hope you understand that. But yes, we are talking about introducing rules in terms of what are your expectations for, and what are the kind of behaviors you want them to follow. So I will move to the next slide. So this is Danielle's and my genius ideas to use. Learn, observe, validate, and empathize. And these 4 elements are a way of giving love and comfort and structure to your child. So I will go through each of them. And so we have learn. Learn about what is going on inside your child under the behaviors. Yeah, we have the behaviors, it's one layer, and under that layers, there is the layers of feelings, thoughts, beliefs, intentions, motivations, and perceptions, how they see the world. So the child's challenging behaviors are opportunities for caregivers to learn about the child. And it seems repetitive what I'm saying, but I think this is it's that we want to reinforce this message in terms of connecting and discipline and setting limits. Misbehaviors, mistakes, not following the rules, breaking the rules. If we can shift our perception as parents, then we see them as opportunities to learn and opportunities to open up space with your child to have conversations about your values and why rules and structures are important in life. So if you have any questions about that slide, I'll be more than happy to answer your questions. In the meantime, I will move to the O for observe. So we briefly talk based on the first question that well, someone who asked the question said, thank you. So you're very welcome. Thank you for asking. With observe is to observe the behavior. It's the language of emotion. So there is a reason why we call some of the behavior you're acting out, and most of the time it's acting out, anger or frustration or irritation or feeling powerless. So the way that we humans, not only children but adults, the way we express our behaviors, our emotions is through the behaviors. So one important learning to do is to observe the behavior and try to connect with what are the internal experiences of the child, internal feelings, and to fully accept not only your internal experience of sometimes feeling irritated or feeling powerless or feeling inadequate in those situations, just kind of very quickly scanning, what am I feeling right now? Yes, my two kids are fighting like they hate each other, and what am I feeling right now? Yes, and maybe you feel tired. It's 10 p.m. at night. You had a long day at work or at home, taking care of the house. And it's good to check, okay, I'm tired, I'm feeling frustrated, I'm feeling irritated. I had it for today. And at the same time, to try to observe, try to figure it out what the children might be feeling. Maybe they are also tired and hungry and frustrated after a long day at school. So when you respond to your child, if you say something to your child or you do something, it's important that you observe the way that your child reacts to you. So it's important to pause in that moment and say, okay, I say this, can you please stop? Can you please stop fighting? Yes, something like that. And then you take a pause and you observe, as a detective, you observe how your child, how your children are responding to your intervention. Is their response in line with your intention? Your intention is for them to stop fighting. So when you intervene, when you interject in that moment, you look and say, okay, did they stop fighting? Well, no. So change of strategy. So did you get the response you were hoping for? So there are plenty of examples that maybe if you go through this, through the presentation later when you have time and you can go slow, then you can think about this situation and start noticing more when you are interacting with your children, to start noticing how they respond when you interact with them. How do you respond? How they respond to your when you interject something. How they respond when you um, uh, say something, or even if it says, stop fighting. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't work. So to observe if what the behavior you're expecting them to change is actually happening after your intervention. It's important for you to be also clear about what's your intention when you intervene or when you interject, when a child is breaking a rule or misbehaving. What is your intention in that moment? Is your intention to calm them down? Is your intention to just stop the behavior no matter what? Yes. Is your intention to get over with the situation because you are in a hurry and you have to go to bed or you have to leave the house? So checking your own intentions in terms of how you are responding to the child behavior, it's something important. So you may notice that, something that we are encouraging you to do is to notice more your own responses, to observe more how they respond to your responses, and to give yourself a little bit of time and window to check in how you're feeling, what are your intentions and motivations when you are intervening with the child. That is something that sometimes as parents we forget. We feel like we don't have time to take care of what's happening to us in that moment. This is a great question. So there is a comment. Thank you very much. Opportunities and invitations. That's a great comment. Thank you. One question is, accept your internal experience. What does that mean? So internal experience is anything that happens to you internally that not necessarily other people can see or can feel or can observe. So those are feelings and thoughts. Sometimes as adults, we are facing a situation. We are experiencing any kind of stress, or we're having any kind of conflict let's say with another person. And if you notice, you start having some conversations in your mind. Even there is a joke that I saw once in social media saying, when I'm having all these conversations and debates and I'm arguing with someone, when I'm taking a shower, I'm always winning those arguments, because in your head we do have these conversations. I'm going to say this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to respond this way, I'm angry. So all those conversations that you have in your head, and we do have a lot of those conversations that not necessarily we are going to speak out or verbalize, that is internal experience. And also what we're feeling. Something is happening outside you, and then you have your own feelings. You feel irritated, you feel excited, you feel sad, you feel angry, you feel upset. So when we try to get rid of those experiences, when we try to get rid, I'm feeling angry, I don't like it, I want to get rid of this, or, oh, I'm having these terrible conversations, I'm a bad person for thinking the way I'm thinking. Accepting means that this is what happening to me right now, and there is no right or wrong. Yeah, it's not good or bad. It's part of being human. Yes, it's things that our feelings and our thoughts, actually we cannot control them. They show up, and they show up for a reason. And it's healthy. Yes, it's healthy. Sometimes we have really challenging thought that I never thought I would be thinking, or I would feel in this way about this situation or about that person. And that's okay. You know, those is our intimate, personal, private experience. And it's important we accept them as they are, that we are able to hold our internal experience as something that is private, and it's part of who we are. And it doesn't mean that, you know, you will verbalize or you will act out emotions and thoughts that you have in that moment. So sometimes if we start struggling with the way we feel, you know, I'm feeling irritated, and I'm trying to get rid of feeling irritated, that struggle will take a lot of energy away from you, that you need to actually be present with your child. So I can say, I can feel, I can say to myself, I'm really irritated and frustrated. What's going on with Johnny right now? And just looking inside of you and saying, okay, this is how I'm feeling. It doesn't mean that you have to act out and put your irritation out there. Yes, because maybe your intention is to calm Johnny down. So yes, you recognize what's going on with you as a parent in that moment, and it take 1 second, 5 seconds, and then you can be fully present for your child and ensure that the way you respond to your child is congruent with the kind of parent you want to be, and also is in line with the response you want from your child. So I hope I answered your question. It's a great question, and it can take a full day just to talk about that. So in terms of, oh, there is a comment. I get excited, sorry. There is a comment that makes sense. Thank you. Well, I'm happy that we are making sense. So thank you so much for that comment. So in terms of validation, validation is not the same as sympathy. And at the end of the presentation, you will see that we're recommending you to take a look at a YouTube that was done by Dr. Brené Brown, a doctor in social worker. And there are a few other things that we are, you know, offering you as great stuff to read. And if you look at that YouTube, maybe you did already. It was a TED Talk, actually. She talks about the difference between validation and sympathy. So I will leave you to watch that YouTube after the session today. So validation is recognizing the other person's experience as it's their own truth, as making sense, as it's legitimate. For example, if if you have your child crying and saying, I'm very sad because I'm feeling ugly. It's hurt us. Oh, it hurts your heart to hear your child saying, I'm sad and I feel ugly. And our first instinct is to say, no, don't be sad, you're not ugly. And when we do that, we are actually not validating the child's feeling. We are actually denying the way they feel. And so one way to respond to, to that kind of situation is to say, I'm so sorry, to see you sad. I feel sad you're feeling sad, and it must be so hard for you to feel or to think that you're ugly. And you can add, as a parent, as a mom or as a dad or auntie, my experience, so the way I see you is that you are such a beautiful girl, and I hope that one day you can see what I see in you. Uh, so in that way, we are sharing with them what is our experience with them without denying their own internal experience. Or sometimes, the child is angry about something and say, yeah, it makes sense to feel angry in this moment. Of course, you will be angry if, Julie broke your toy, or, the dog, didn't want to play with you. So that is when we talk about validation, that is what we mean. So even if it doesn't make sense to you the way they feel, it's important that they feel heard, they feel understood, and that you get them. You get what they're feeling, even if you don't agree or if it doesn't make sense to you. Um, and one of the things that the conversations we have with parents here at Child Adolescent Services is, don't rush to in trying to fix or to change something that sometimes is uncomfortable to hear from your child or to see in your child. So remember, when we're talking about connecting and correcting, take your time. Take most of your time to validate the child, to feel empathy, to show your empathy to your child, even when it doesn't make sense, even when you think that this is a tiny problem that your child is making it big. But they are smaller. They don't have the same experiences that we had, or the age or the maturity that we have. In that moment for them, the world is crashing, and we need to see the world crashing with them without trying to fix it or make them feel better about it. The best way you can make your child feel better is when your child feels that you understand and they are feeling heard in whatever it is that they are feeling or experiencing. And the more the child feels validated, the more open and flexible they will be. And then is when you're building the block of a healthy, trusting, and safe relationship. Yeah, your relationship is with your child is your priority. And the second priority is to change, to fix, or uh, to teach them a lesson if they broke a rule. So I hope um, the topic of validation was clear. We really have a brief time here. So empathy, yeah, I think I talked about Brené Brown before, the slide about empathy. Um, uh, that's okay. So I think someone included a link to watch that YouTube. So in society, or we talk a lot about what empathy is, and is to put yourself in someone else's shoes and connect with the feeling that the child is experiencing. And if you cannot really connect with the child in that moment because you are a grown up, and you have a full day full of your own experiences, again, take a moment to just imagine, to remember, to do whatever is necessary to put yourself in, how was it for me when I was a child? And maybe it was completely the opposite, yeah, of what your child is experiencing. And even that is important, because then you can recognize that the way that you were parented is very different the way you want to parent your child. So it's important for you to sometimes imagine, if you were a child now with this parent, how would you feel? Or if you were a child now going to school and maybe having a learning disability or having social anxiety, how would I feel in those situations if I was a child? So if you need to use your imagination or remember experiences from your childhood, we do whatever is necessary to feel empathy and to be able to walk our children's shoes and to communicate that you understand the feelings. Yeah. And again, even when it doesn't make sense, it's nectar to their ears and to their heart for a child to hear a parent saying, I do understand what you're feeling right now. I do understand how difficult this is for you, how challenging this is for you. I absolutely understand that this is not easy, or how you're feeling, or what you are experiencing in this moment. Those words are so loving, and it's a shower of good communication and healthy communication with your child. And I hope you enjoy Brené Brown presentation. She's very important. So there is a comment. I can think of times when I felt understood and times when I felt that people didn't get me. This is a good reminder that our kids need the same emotional support that we all do. Thank you. That is a beautiful comment. We really appreciate that. There was another question before, and so I can scroll it. Yes, I need some um, going some technical problems. If you're patient with me. Another comment, we've had times where validation worked so well. It took all the frustration right out of them because they felt understood. I was so surprised and happy. Yes, I'm happy to hear that. So sometimes, as clinicians, we say validation, validation, and validation across the world with every human being. We all want to feel understood. We all want to feel accepted, the way we're feeling, the way we are. So those are great comments. Thank you. This is the I wanted to share with you something that happened to me eons of years ago when I was a student at university. I had to do my practice, so for clinical psychology. So my practice was to do some work, interviews with someone who was in jail. So it was a young man. He was in his 20s and he was in jail because he broke the law, obviously, and it was drug and robbery related. And something that stood out for me, even till these days, because that happened probably more than 30 years ago, is that he said, my parents were very loving, very nurturing, and he actually he came from a wealthy family. So he had all the conditions there for success. His parents were professionals, there were no financial constraints. He had access to education, access to wood shelter, and loving parents. But he said that one of the things that he felt his parents were lacking was limits and boundaries. It was like everything was okay, that there was no the space was too open for him to do whatever he wanted. So he gave me the example, and that's why we choose this slide with the fence. He said, I think that if my parent had built with their parenting and limits and boundaries a fence, so that I know that I can lean toward each side without falling and without falling in an empty space, and for him was falling into jail basically. So that conversation that he shared with me, that insight that he shared with me, that he wished that his parent, will put these little fences, not too close and not too far from where he was walking through the path of his life, was incredibly important. And I think that I don't remember in what year I was in university, probably my fourth year. Um, I felt in that moment like a student. Yes, I felt like I really learned from my client. So some of the things that we share with you as clinicians is based on a lot of learning we do from great parenting and mistakes that sometimes we hear from parents, and how they're able to connect in a non-judgmental way with their mistakes, and be able to learn and correct things that the way they wish. So imagine that the discipline and boundaries as these fences in the life of your child as a path. And if they fall, you are there to hold them. And these fences are not too close that you suffocate with rules and regulations, and not too open that the child doesn't know where he's located in the bigger scope of life. So I hope this example and this sharing, that it was so important for me in my early years of my learning and becoming a professional, was to me, I found that incredibly impactful. So these two fences, not too close, not too far apart. The purpose of limits is create consistency, predictability. It's good for children to know that every night we go to bed at 8 p.m. And consistency is that a rule is the same today and tomorrow. And if I change a rule, it's because they've grown up, and the rule needs to change to adapt to be more reasonable to the age or developmental stage they are. And it's safety, yes, that these rules are or boundaries and limits are to provide them with the safety environment. And it's comfort, that the child know that it's coming from a place of you providing comfort with your child, with consistency and predictability. And it's guidance to support positive future behaviors and resilience and coping skills. And most importantly, to have reasonable expectation according to their age and development. And especially if your children are experiencing, learning disabilities or some delay in their development, it's important to take that pause and make to have reasonable expectation, reasonable rules about what they are capable of doing and accomplishing with the conditions that they have. So I hope this example about the fences help you. So there is another question or comment. I can understand what he said. It is hard, though, to feel that our kids' challenges are ours only to prevent. Um, that is it's a very good comment. And one of the things that sometimes, we as parents or caregivers, is that we don't have control over everything in life. And your child will go through some experiences that we wish we could have avoided for them. So when at the beginning of the presentation, I was talking about being proactive rather than reactive. I think that has to do with the comment that you're making. We cannot prevent our child from being hurt, from having a moment of sadness or disappointment or really difficult challenges and stress in their life. But the most important thing is that your child feels that no matter how they feel, how they are doing, or what they did, no matter what age, that they can rely on your comfort and safety. We cannot prevent our children from making mistakes or going through difficult times or encountering people that may hurt them or not be good for influence. we do our best to prevent as much as possible. And again, we have to be reasonable with the expectations that we have as parents. Yes, that there are something we have no control over, and to be okay with that. I think it comes with the package of being a parent as part of the things that we cannot predict. But we try to set the foundations as strong as we can, you know. So there is another question. Um, this reminds me of my mother saying that a parent's job is to be a soft place to fall. Oh, that is so cool. Um, yeah, I I think I'm gonna use that with some of my clients. That is very, very well said. Yes, that's what we want from our parents. And I think the best memories that we have of our parents is, you know, one of the best memories that we may have of our parents is those moments that we were vulnerable, we were having, you know, life was crushing us and we feel like we can fall onto a soft place. You know, our parents love, and that's beautiful. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Um, so, okay, so this is something that we encounter, a lot is when we get caught into, um, oh, so we have another slide. I have people helping me here, so I think I skipped one slide. Consequences. So sometimes consequences are necessary and other times are not necessary consequences, or that we give them consequences. For example, like your child is very cold outside and your child is not wearing a sweater, and you said, you know, it's kind of cold outside. Maybe it's a good idea if you wear a sweatshirt. And off he goes without a sweatshirt. So you don't need to impose any consequences. Your child will be cold, it will be freezing, and then he will learn. So those are natural, organic consequences. And it is good for your child to have that experience, because then he can take more ownership on that. So it's a way of picking your battles, that sometimes it's okay to let your child have a little fall, you know, a little injury on the knees, or to be cold, because it's a way that we learn in life. So it's a contained, you know, it's a safe and contained way for your child to learn his own lessons. So sometimes we don't need to give child consequences, they just happen. And again, we look at consequences as opportunity for repair, and for learning. And when we say to repair, because when a child breaks a rule, you know, somehow there is a break in the relationship too. Someone gets upset or afraid or scared. Sometimes there is an argument. So there is a little bit of tension. So you know, when we give consequences to a child, let's say that you have two children and one child went into one of the, you know, sister room and made a mess. And so that is an opportunity to, the consequence that you give your child is to repair the damage that he made. And it's okay, you know, I understand you were upset with your sister because yesterday she broke your Nintendo or Xbox. I don't know what is, you know, different things, you know, video games. And I can see why you will be angry and upset and you wanted to get back to her. I understand that. And, you know, now I think it's important that she heard your message. We understand why you were trying to communicate. And a consequences, a way to repair is to apologize to the sister by cleaning up the room. Yeah. So we see as these breaks in, or this moment where child shows some challenging behavior as to give them opportunities to repair. And because then in that way, when they feel guilty about something they did, we give them an opportunity to resolve that guilt and not to feel that, you know, I'm a bad person, I'm a bad child because I broke a rule. So it's very important to give them opportunities to repair that. And parents and even schools, they have different ways to that, writing a letter or you know, working in the garden with you to pay back, you know, something they broke at home, or for no coming back on time during curfew. Yeah, so you have a teenager, they have a curfew, they don't come on time. And a way to repair that break in the relationship and trust between your child, your teenager, and yourself is to maybe next day say, you know what, I have to do some weeding, you know, or I am going to be working in the garden. So your consequences, you're going to be working with me. Yeah. So in that way, you know, you are giving your teenager a consequence and then an opportunity to repair in a productive way, because at the same time you're building relationship with your child. Um, you know, we talk about consequences and rather than punishment. Punishment have a short tail, they have a short life. And the main reason is because when we are afraid of punishment, what is um, what is behind your being a good child is fear, is being scared. And there is no learning in that. Yes, there is, the emotion takes over of being punished and having a parent who is punitive, and there is no learning. So the same behavior will happen at some point, or sometimes the more you punish your child without giving them opportunities to learn or to repair, the more your child will start to keep some distance, and they will start keeping things away from you out of fear of your reactions. So that's why we talk more about consequences rather than punishment. There is something that we experience a lot here at Child Adolescent Services is when parents or even teachers, sometimes they get caught into, is this true or is this not true? And actually, you know, finding out what the truth is, it really mattered. And it may sound funny to you, and I wish I had more time to expand, but what matters is what we do with that moment that is presented in front of you. They're not going to be honest when they feel judged, or when you get stuck in finding out what really happened. Yes, there is many more things you can do, and I hope that the previous slides that you saw give you a little bit of cues of what to do instead of getting caught into what is true and what is not true. So I have here a little toy, it's a ball. And so if we get caught into, you know, whether the person is lying or telling the truth, it could also be that there are different perspectives and experiences of something that happened. Like if I show you this, you will see that you will think, you know, what color is the ball? Is, you will say it's blue, and I will say no, it's black. No, it's blue. No, it's black. And you can go for 10 million years having that conversation and or argument. And if I turn this around, you know, I'm looking through life or whatever happened with different lenses. I'm seeing blue now and you're seeing black. So sometimes we really get stuck in those moments of who's telling the truth. And at the end of the day, you know, we experience different truth and different perspective and different ways to look at life. So I have this in my office, and it's very, very helpful to, as a reminder. I have it on my desk. Um, so this is a little reminder of a summary of the conversation that we had today. So I hope you find it helpful. And again, it's a little reminder of how important it is to connect with others before we step into fixing and changing and correcting. The most important thing, the priority is the relationship with your child, that you trust you, feels understood, feels that no matter what happens, you will maybe judge the behavior, but not judge who they are. And every mistake your child makes, those are opportunities for learning. And even in the moments of intense emotions of you feeling irritated, angry, and frustrated, or profoundly sad, to never forget that the beautiful person your child is becoming. To not forget that in those moments, we have the opportunity to respond to them as if, they are the most beautiful and loving thing that you have. Um, so there is a comment, great example with Evolve, thank you. Comment, so the love, L-O-V-E, is in the overlap between connect and correct. Got it. Yes, yes, thank you. So I hope you enjoy the presentation. We have a last quote to share with you from Maya Angelou, an incredible poet and social activist. And she says, I have learned that people will forget what you said. People will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. And if you think, just take 1 second to think about this quote and to even remember someone in your childhood, a teacher, a coach, a friend, a family member, your parents, or any caregiver you might have. We do remember the way that people made us feel. Yes, and that's what you want, when your children are 50, 60, 70 years old, what the way that you remember you is that they felt nurtured, unconditionally loved, and safe, and they found comfort with you in difficult times. Here is a little map of where we are located at Child and Adolescent Services. We are a multidisciplinary team of clinical therapists, and we have 2 great receptionists and admin staff supporting our work, welcoming you when you come into our place. We are located on Main Street East, and the main intersection is Catherine. There are parking close to us, and we're very close to Jackson Square, where most of the buses will park in case you take the bus. So the last is a few resources. We didn't want, with Danielle, Clement, we didn't want to overwhelm you with resources. We know you're busy and sometimes there is no time to read. We also know that some people feel more comfortable watching and listening rather than listening. So we wanted to give you the option of having access to videos through these 2 links that you will see in blue. And then if you are more of a reader, then you can access some of the, we gave you the name of the authors and professionals working in the mental health or parenting field. So you have these 2 options, to watch and to read. So I have a few more comments. Said, thank you very much for the info you shared. You're very welcome. Thank you for being there. I will share this with other parents I know. Yes, spread the word, connecting before correcting, and that is the best source of love that you can offer your child. And I think we're done for today. Thank you for being there and supporting this wonderful idea of offering these webinars to parents in the Hamilton area. You take care.
Thank you so much, Margarita and Danielle as well in the background who helped prepare this session. So much really, really helpful information shared and yet so simple and all about connecting before correcting and really having those loving conversations to help establish some of those limits and safe spaces for your child to grow and explore in and still have that soft place to fall, as someone's mom had always said to them by the sounds of it. So thank you again. The recordings and